Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Child's Gallery Virtual Artist Talk with Robert Freeman and Max Stern as they discuss their joint exhibition, Portals and Passages, which is on view at Child's Gallery through Sunday, May 19th. My name is Richard Viano, and I am president of Child's Gallery. The exhibition is currently on view. We're open Tuesday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., Sunday, 11 to 5, as well as Saturday. There will be a question and answer opportunity following this artist talk, so please feel free to submit questions via the chat feature during the presentation. So I will start now with just a brief introduction of both Max and Robert, and also talk a little bit about the exhibition, and then turn the talk over to the two of them. So this is actually the second group exhibition of Robert Freeman and Max Stern. They did a group show at the Adelson Galleries in Boston in 2018, which depicted the Mardi Gras Indians. Max with the photographs and Robert with the paintings. And so this was their first foray into a group exhibition. And when it was proposed to me by Robert to have a group show on Portals and Passages, I thought it would be a terrific juxtaposition. And I think that as we go through the slides, you'll see that. So Robert and Max are longtime friends. We will let them talk a little bit about that while they're talking. They're both sort of legends in their own right. Robert as a painter, and Max as an attorney. And this is Robert's second exhibition at Child's Gallery, and this is Max's first. So here's a installation shot where we have juxtaposed Robert's paintings with Max's photos. So this exhibition, Portals and Passages, explores the possibilities of liminal space through the paintings of Robert Freeman and the photographs of Max Stern. Both artists depict images sited on the threshold: windows, doorways, tunnels, tree-lined passages, and other found opening. Such portals and passages function as a transitional space that connect or separate the worlds, interior and exterior, known and unknown, before and after. As such, these intermediary places can represent exciting possibilities or harrowing rupture. A simple door can be a portal to freedom or a formidable barrier, a symbol of hope and catharsis, or estrangement and loss. So Robert Freeman's paintings explore the darker side of this experience, inspired by a recent trip to Ghana, where he spent part of his childhood. Freeman's paintings depict the slave castles at Elmina and the Cape Coast, and these were the fortresses that were used to hold enslaved Africans before they were loaded onto the ships and sent to America as part of the slave trade. On the other hand, Max Stern's photographs depict a multifaceted experience of architectural and natural openings, and Stern is captivated by the still photograph's ability to capture and create mystery and stimulate curiosity. So you see here, we have, here's an example of a work by Max Stern and Robert Freeman. This is the only work in the show in which Robert was directly inspired by a painting, by a photograph of Max's. And at this point, Robert, I will turn it over to you if you want to start with this, and then just tell me as to move the slides.
Yeah, let me begin by just saying thank you, Richard, and thank you to all who work at Child's Gallery. My paintings really originated from my wife and I going to Ghana and kind of returning to a lot of childhood places, but never visited as a child the slave castles. And when my wife and I, my wife had never been to Ghana, and so this was her first trip. And the slave castles were one of the last places that we visited. And we were just taken by how powerful it was to stand where our ancestors lost their lives and were transported all over the world in slavery. Of course, we knew about that, but to stand on the floor, which was made up of their dead skin and their nails and menstrual blood, just took its toll on us, and so much so that we went back to our hotel room and didn't leave it for 3 days, stomping and crying and just trying to digest what we saw. When I returned from Ghana, I went into the studio and tried to depict the terror, the horror of what we experienced in the castles. And as I was doing these in Elmina, and these are images of Elmina and Cape Coast Castle. As I was doing these, I was trying to capture uh, the the horror of being in prison and looking outside at the beauty that the slaves would never arrive or never get to. And as I'm doing this, my wife was saying, you know, Max was doing portals in the same way that I'm seeing you trying to do these slave castles. And and I said, yeah, let me get in touch with Max. And I looked at Max's website and I said, gee whiz, Max, we are indeed doing the same things. We're trying to hide the terror and look at the beauty at the same time. And this was something that we had done before in the NOLA Indians. Max and his wife Margaret invited us to New Orleans on Super Sunday, and we're on his porch. Max is hearing the sound of a second line, and we run out and take pictures, and we had a wonderful show together, as Richard you showed. And so I called Max and I said, look, can we think about a show together again? And I asked Richard if that's possible, and Richard looked at Max's work and said, yes, it's possible. So I really want to thank again the Child's Gallery for allowing this to take place, and showing what can be difficult work. Certainly, the slave castles were really difficult for me, and I'm still digesting the terror that I felt while inside one of these dungeons. And this is a pretty good image of one of the dungeons. Very few of them had daylight coming through, but I just like the sense of light coming through on this one. The uh, the the idea of not only being a slave and captured here, but then being transported to a world that you didn't know. And oh well, I mean, it still is very emotional for me, and even to look at these paintings that I produced. If we could go to the next painting. Yeah, well, this is a good example of why Max and I got together. You're going to see in Max's work a little later that here we are trapped in a fortress, a slave fortress, looking out at this beautiful village that the slave would never have an opportunity to experience ever again. And I wanted to get the feeling of the viewer, looking a sense of being trapped, but looking out at this wonderful, beautiful village outside. Yeah, this was this was a tough one. This was a door of no return, and it was in Cape Coast, and I wanted to somehow have the viewer feel the terror of this door. And I think at the last moment, I wanted these ghost-like figures of slaves that gave their lives going and passing through this door. It's a very large painting and a very dramatic painting, and I, I think it's one of the most dramatic paintings in the show. This was the Door of No Return in Elmina Castle. Again, trying to show this kind of ghost-like figure looking out at a slave ship. And trying, and I'm not sure I succeeded, but I really tried to get a sense of the floor itself that is made up of, again, as I said before, menstrual blood and tissue and nails, fingernails and toenails of the slaves that had to reside there. And sometimes they resided there many months before they were shipped off. This is a painting that I started a couple of years ago, and I wasn't sure which way it was going. It was a painting of started out as a painting about the conflict of war. I introduced embryos into it. I introduced airplanes. I had actually rays of light coming down from the airplanes. But as I was painting it, again, this is a really large painting. It's about 6 feet by a little over 6 feet by 5 feet. As I was painting it, a friend came into the studio and said, "Oh, those airplanes, they're modern day slave ships, taking the resources out of Africa still." And I thought, yes, yes, they are. That's exactly what this painting is. And then I tried to paint just what my friend was talking about. This happens an awful lot. I think that when I'm in the process of making a painting, particular painting that is not to document anything, but to really bring out something that's inside of me that I don't understand myself, I really look for people that will see something that I can't see in the painting and help me find out what the real meaning of the painting is about. And so this is indeed a painting of modern day slave ships. I was talking about this painting the other day with Richard, and was glad that Richard accepted it into the show, because as I was as I was telling Richard, I couldn't stop painting on this painting. I didn't know where it stopped, and I didn't know where it started. Again, this is probably a 10-foot painting. I was painting on ladders with it. 10-foot painting that I began because of my love for Africa, which I spent much of my childhood in, and then the return to Africa, and with my wife, and thinking about Africa as the birthplace of mankind, thinking about Africa with astrological symbols. I threw everything into this painting but the kitchen sink, and I told Richard that if he hadn't taken it away, there'd probably be even more stuff I'd put in or take out. So I don't know that the painting is finished. It was just taken away and shown, and it's a painting that every time I look at it, I just want to kind of just do that something else to it, but I don't know what else to do to it. So there it is.
Well, I always think that's the difficult thing with an artist is knowing when you're done, I would imagine. Um,
I'm glad you took this painting away still wet, Richard. Thank you. Part of this was 2 years ago that my wife and I returned to Ghana. We had a wonderful friend who happened to be a minister of the government, Kathleen Corte, who was our host, and she took us to many different places in Ghana that I had seen before, but Betty had never seen. And my favorite place to visit with my parents was Aburi. And Aburi is the botanical gardens that are up above Accra and really overlooking Accra. And these botanical gardens are um, are some of the most beautiful botanical gardens in the world. And so I began painting these as kind of a balm to soothe me from what I was going through painting the slave castle paintings. It was depressing to say the least, painting the slave castle paintings, but it was also a way of getting at my emotions and purging those emotions. So these are several of the paintings from Obori. Again, these are I think the final paintings on these images. That again, these are the roads that lead, the flowers that bloom, and just the natural beauty that I needed while I was painting. Also, the difficult paintings of the slave castles.
So now I'll introduce Max to talk a little bit about his work, and we see works juxtaposed with Robert's paintings.
Well, thank you, Richard, and thank you, everybody at the Childs Gallery for hosting us and for putting together this terrific combination for where you folks saw correlations between our work in ways that we actually hadn't seen, or at least I hadn't seen. And I have to, give my greatest appreciation to Bob, who Bob, as far as I'm concerned, Bob is the master, and I am the student. And he's been taking me around. Now, I did invite him to New Orleans, but he was the one who could really see what we could do and that we could do something together. He is the most, absolutely, as you can see, most fabulous and thoughtful artist. I'm just a kid who learned how to snap a camera. But he's shown me, helped me, shown the way. And my photographs are by no means as terrifying as the photographs that Bob, as the paintings that Bob has brought to you from Ghana. But it was interesting and really fascinating for me to see how there could be correlations. And the correlation that we found, was the the mystery and the unknown aspects of visual arts and art. Such as here on the right, you see something that looks forward, and you don't really know what's coming on the other side, what there is on the other side. You don't even, and you have to think about it. And I think the common thread in at least the photographs that I have here and the paintings that Bob has is the notion that you have to use your imagination. The art does not tell you everything, does not tell you what it is exactly, and you have to think about what is on the other side, where you would be going if you went on the other side. Can you get to the other side? And what brought you here? This one on the left is part of the Cyclades chain of islands in the Aegean Sea, part of Greece. And this is the sort of thing that I've really been interested in for some years, the idea of looking through a portal, and so that you can think about where it's going. Can you hit the next one? All right. This on the left, this photograph is in Barbados. There's something called the Garrison, which is was originally the British headquarters in the Caribbean, and it's a large space with a number of military type buildings there, from the 19th and in some cases the 18th century. And this one in particular, this picture in particular, is that I took having Bob in mind, because I took this photograph, and another one you will see later is because of the fact that he had already come back from Ghana and had told me what he was doing, and I went looking for something that would correspond to what Bob was also doing. And this, of course, was where the British had established a colony, which was developed and worked by slaves. And this was the fort that enabled them to maintain it. And it was a connection between Western Africa and the Caribbean, which was all of which were affected or run by in these cases, Ghana and Barbados, the British colonial enterprise. This in particular was, and you will see later, part of a slave slave quarters that were in the part of the house that George Washington's brother lived at. And when they were excavating to see what was underneath it a few years ago, they found these tunnels that crisscrossed all through this giant field, which is now a wonderful little racetrack. And they were there so that when the British Army was attacked, they could drop down into these tunnels and run across and get to the other side. So I was thinking, all right, this sounds to me like something like Bob was working on. You can hit go to the next one.
This has been one of the favorites of people coming into the gallery.
Well, this is right here in Boston, and it's one which is also takes you into another space, and also requires you to use your imagination, but in quite a different way. It's not that you're looking through a hole, but you're looking actually here through the kind of glass brick that is sometimes used. And in this case, this was when the Big Dig was being constructed. They were At this stage, they were knocking stuff down. They hadn't really built anything yet. And my office was essentially right across the street. And there was a new MBTA stop or building, and they had on the wall as you went in, they had put up this window, and I looked at it and said, "My, isn't this beautiful?" And what is it? Actually, you can't see it, but it's, bulldozers and that sort of thing, and a couple of buildings that were about to come down. But I've always loved it.
Mm.
On the left is really just another way of looking at an urban landscape. This is in the South End. There's a garage that winds up, and where from time to time we went over to this what's the name of the hotel on Huntington Avenue, where we had dinner, and I would drive up and say, "Wow, what a great look this is in the South End." On the right is if you've never been to the Brooklyn Botanical Garden, it's really a wonder. Well, if not a wonder of the world, it's a wonder of New York City. And it's and here was a section that was being redone, and it left this unusual kind of peekaboo hole, unlike the kind that you usually see when you are at a construction site. This was some real beauty that was right behind it, and you wondered, what are they doing, and what are they going to be making? And go. On the right, this is the slave quarters that I was telling you about. It really, that is an incredibly depressing place. There were about 5 of these in a row. And this is where George Washington, when he suffered some kind of an ailment, went down to see his brother and recuperated for a couple of months. On the left, this is, this is again, now those of us who know where we are there will know, of course, that this is the ferry that leaves from Woods Hole and goes to Martha's Vineyard. But if you don't know exactly where it is, and you're thinking about what it is and where it is you have to think about, wow, is this going up into the air, into the stars, or what is it all about? Well, on the right is a photograph from the Atchafalaya Swamp in Louisiana, which is the largest swamp in the United States. And when we took one of these airboats that has a big fan on the back and takes you all around the swamp, luckily with a guide, because if we had ever gotten lost, we would, this was some years ago, we'd still be there. But when we pass this one particular place, it just looks so inviting. It looks like the natural swamp, the natural water and trees were beckoning us to come in and see what's in the next section, and that's what this swamp was like. It was one piece after another, like this, and this was it's one of those photographs that as soon as I saw it, I thought, oh, this is the one, this is it. And on the left, this is, that's okay, go ahead. You can hit the next one. These are two photographs from Martha's Vineyard. The one on the right is, it is a mystery in another way, which is, where is this going and how far is it going and what is this little person doing at the end at the end of this? And on the left is, again, this one is Western Massachusetts, and it's, another one saying, well, okay, this was built somehow. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm looking at the wrong one. This is also the vineyard, and there's a little swamp right behind the wooden walkway. That again, it makes you wonder, where we going to, what's on the other side and where's it going? Prospect Park in Brooklyn. And, another theme of some of my photographs is the same sort of thing, but live. Who are these people? And where did they come from? And where are they going? And who are they? And we only have the silhouettes, and we wonder, what do they look like, and so forth. You can hit it again, Rich.
I think that's it for the slideshow. And what I would like to do is, both thank Robert and Max for explaining their work, and now I'd like to open the webinar for a discussion. The first thing that I would like to ask you is, how long have both of you known each other, and when did you realize that you had similar artistic sensibilities?
I don't know how long I've known.
I was going to say, I have no idea.
A real long time.
It's a real long time. Yeah, I think that this second show with Max is Max is very humble about it, but it's always been a privilege to show my paintings with Max's photographs. So much so that I did something that I rarely ever do. And that is, I did work from my own photographs to show the slave castles, but I had asked Max if I could use one of his photographs to make my image, and that was the first image that you showed. I don't know if you can go back to it or
I
not.
can go back to it.
But there it is, right there. At first I said, will Max let me borrow from his work? Is it ethical to borrow from his work? And I said, I'm going to produce the painting and then I'll show Max. And Max was okay with it.
I loved it.
And I had never done this before, but again, it for me, it just symbolizes the privilege of showing with Max, and what he sees in his photography is so dramatic, that I used his vision to make this very large painting.
Max, I'm curious, how long have you been taking photographs?
Since I was a small boy. My father had a dark room and introduced me to it with I think my first camera was a Brownie camera. And I kept doing it for years, not that seriously. When I was in law school, we had some friends of mine found a little known section of the student handbook, which said you can take a course anywhere in the university if a professor will approve it. So I one semester took a course in photography. Another one of my friends took one in Shakespeare. Um, but I think that helped me. That gave me a boost. Um, and then then I had uh, various adventures, traveling around the world with my wife. Uh, she would uh, she would take me to lots of places where she was invited to go, and I would bring my camera.
I remember having a 110 camera when I was a child. If anyone remembers what those are. So Robert, uh, as we've talked about, these are paintings with a heavy subject matter, and I do know that you still continue to work on your social uh, season and more celebratory paintings, and I'm wondering what it's like going back and forth between the two. I'm imagining it probably takes a little bit of an emotional toll.
It feels schizophrenic at most times, and it was a relief to go back to some of the celebration of the Black middle class. They were paintings that I really enjoyed doing. They come rather quickly. There's no preliminary sketches. What you see is what you get. The narrative is there, and so they were and still are a great relief from the past two shows that I've had at Child's Gallery. The first show was a very difficult subject matter about just our struggle as African Americans. And again, I really thank the Child's Gallery as I've done this time so many times to show work that most people aren't going to put this over their couch. Although Richard said he might put this one over his couch. um, and so the paintings that celebrate are they sell quickly, but the importance to me as an artist of making these paintings that are from our travels and from our experiences are so important. And again, I thank the Charles Gallery for having this show. The I think about the uh, wonderful experiences I had as an undergraduate, where faculty like John Wilson and Richard Yard and Reed Kay showed me how to draw and how to see, and then to go on to graduate school and work with Philip Guston, who really taught me how to feel. And so I'd like to think that all of these paintings are about seeing and feeling. And I really look back on those times and those teachers that made all of this possible. So I'm very appreciative.
I want to, as I sit here and look at these two images, I want to respond to something that Bob said before, where he questioned whether it was ethical to use somebody else's image as a starting point. Um, Absolutely is. And if you look at Bob's, for a while, you see what's different, or what he's added, is not only of course, the story of what it's about, but also you look at this and you can really feel the people moving. They're moving that way. And it's really not even a still. It's not a still image. It's a moving image to me. And and of course you need to think about where they're going, which is not good.
Thanks, Max. And thanks for letting me use this image. This one came quickly because of your photograph, but it also came quickly because of the emotions involved in it. And so I really appreciate it. You know, Max always thanks me, but this show just couldn't have come about without his photographs, and I really appreciate and still do appreciate having these shows with him.
Well, I was struck when Max came into the gallery to show me the photos, um, just how many there were and how the connections could be made between your work and Max's work and Robert's work, because it's not a common occurrence, especially in different media with different scales. So I want to actually call out Julie Edwards, who's one of our directors of the gallery, and I think she did a terrific job with the placement and the curation of the works, because it really it makes its own story together. And so I do encourage everyone to come in and see it. It's still up for another week, but you know it's not a. I think initially I was a little bit unclear if the connection would work, and it really does, and in a way that makes me, proud that we did this exhibition. And again, to Robert's point about um, showing the harder images, I've often said that um, you know uh, we're not in the best of times. We're certainly not in the worst of times, but I'd rather show artwork at the gallery that's meaningful and has something to comment on about what's going on in today's world. And so it's exciting to be able to do this. So one thing, Robert, about the slave castles, because we had a woman from Ghana who actually came in, and she said that it was a taboo subject when you were there. As a child growing up, like no one would look at them or talk about them. Was that your experience?
I always assumed that my family moved when I was 10 years old, and I left at around 17. And we didn't know much. I didn't know much about the slave castles, but they were there. And I don't think that they were seen as tourist attractions. They certainly hadn't been, I don't know if renovated is the right word, but they hadn't been opened up to the public in ways that they're open up today. I just don't know the history. I know that that an expatriate who we were friends with, he and his wife were two dentists who expatriated actually before we even went to Ghana in the early 50s. Bobby Lee became one of the people who was interested in restoring the slave castles and making them open to the public. But I think that my parents, if they were open to the public, simply didn't want to burden me with what they were about at that time because of my age.
Well, what I'm curious about is why the buildings survived to begin with. Do you know? I mean,
No, I should know, but I don't. But I do know that there were other slave castles that did not survive, and that there are a number of Ghanaians that are interested in rebuilding those and restoring their history.
so do you two have any future trips planned for collaborative purposes, or just some trips planned?
All suggestions will be gratefully accepted.
You know, it was Max who said, "I've you got to come to New Orleans. You got to come to New Orleans and see what's going on." Um, and so Betty and I, went to and stayed with Max and Margaret, and I think, as I said before in the beginning, that we're sitting on the porch, and Max hears the music We charge out. He grabs his camera. I have my little telephone with a camera in it. We charge out towards the music, and there may have been about 25, maybe less, maybe 10, 15 people when we arrive. An hour later, there were hundreds of people, maybe 100 people, following the band and dancing and celebrating with the music. And I thought to myself, you know, I'm going to depend on Max and Margaret to let me know where to go next. We had such a good time doing it. And I was very happy that he said yes in this collaboration also.
So Max, how do you see your photography developing? Will you continue this sort of aperture and in between spaces?
Well, I think as long as I have a day job, regretfully, that's what I'm going to have to do. Um, but I do think, doing things like this, enabled me to have a little more focus on what I'm doing. But I'm still, the person who, wherever I go, I'm thinking of, bringing my camera. And I find you never stop learning. You never stop really appreciating, how, what kind of images really thrill you. I think I get better at it all the time. Um, and then who knows?
And when did you switch from film to digital, or do you still do film?
No, I don't do it. Well, first, I had I started, I had taken film for many years, and mostly it was on prints. And then I discovered the what do you call it? I'm blocking on a particular process, color process, which you had to get done at a special.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, and made some beautiful, beautiful prints, but you had to have slides. So I wound up switching completely to slides, and then I got a little, when uh, digital came around, um, I continued with slides, but I got a little scanning machine where I would drop the slides in and have them make a digital image. But then I had to, the slides would have little spots on them, and I have to take them all off and that sort of thing. And finally, I said, okay, it's digital all the way.
Yeah, I mean, the color that you get with the greens is really sort of spectacular. Um, so I know this is changing the subject a little bit, but it's always something that I like to ask. Oh, actually, I have a question or a comment that came in. So this is from William Evertston, who's one of our artists as well. And his comment is, in passing, Max referred to some of Robert's new work as terrifying. They certainly evoke strong feelings that will take some time to internalize. The juxtaposition with Max's work takes this show to a new level. And congratulations to both of you and to the gallery for all of this. So thank you, William. But I think that's a true comment. And then we also have something from a gentleman named Steve. When I saw Rothenberg and Door of No Return together at Childs, I wondered if Rothenberg invoked a concentration camp, further tying the two works together. And I'm assuming that That's that, yes. And listening to Robert and Max, I'm moved by the bond and commonality between the Jewish and African American people,
Mm.
which I think is interesting.
Hmm.
So enjoying your relationship.
Hmm.
Very nice. So what I was going to say is if you've ever watched the uh, in the actor's studio at the end, there's some of these questions that are asked when people come to the pearly gates. But I do have one question that I think is important for everyone who wants to be an artist or is an artist, and that is, what advice would you give to young artists? Both of you, whoever wants to answer that.
Yeah, I think most of my career was spent not just painting but teaching, and and that advice has changed over the years. Well, I would have many years ago, I would have said concentrate on observing and recording. Um, and I think that is a part of the process. At least it's very much a part of my process. But I think maybe more importantly, that artists should think about what is important to them, and 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 what is it that they can't help but to do, and go ahead and do it. Believe in what you are doing, regardless of what you've seen or what the public sees, and project what is so personal to you, um, and it will surprise and inform you at the same time, and hopefully inform the viewers at the same time also. So yes, there's technique involved, and yes, you should know technique, but I think the the personal, the things that you dream about as an artist, or maybe even discover as you're making marks, um, is one of the most important things that an artist can do.
But
Um,
what I think about in when I was listening to your earlier conversation, you actually have a very specific lesson that you can verbalize that you learned from your various teachers, many of which are very important. And I think down the road it'll be interesting what people come away with how what you have taught them. So Max, to you with that.
Well, I would say, learn by doing. I think mostly uh, everything I've learned, mostly, not completely, but is because I just kept doing it. And digital photography has been a great uh, advance for us because you can take numerous photographs. And you look at something and you can try it this way, and you can try it that way, and you think it you want to use a certain kind of light or not, and you can just and then you see the results. And that process of taking the photographs and seeing the results and thinking about how what you've done moves you or doesn't move you, and it makes you really develop and make you realize how this is not a static um, uh, sort of enterprise, but one that you're able to develop simply by doing it yourself. And it's a great, Bob had to uh, learn over many years in school and after school to develop his technique. But anyone can grab a camera and they could just do it, and they should.
Well, one of the things that one commonality that I see with artists is that they approach their craft as a discipline and something that they do every day, or if not every day, it's a major component of their life. And I think that that's evident with both of you. I often wonder, Max, how you could uh, use images inside of a courtroom for some of the same sort of portals.
Well, there are similarities.
Yeah,
Because I'm a trial lawyer, and being a trial lawyer is you have to create a certain picture, and you have to decide what's in the frame and what is not in the frame. And it's a sort you do the same kind of analysis um, in the courtroom as you try to develop a theme. And get people to think about what you're trying to propose.
so just a funny anecdote. We had, like, I was aware, of course, that Max was an attorney, and we had an attorney in the gallery, and she's like, "Oh, there's a famous criminal trial attorney named Max Stern." And we're like, "That's Max." She's like, "Oh my God, he went to school with my husband." So again, as I said, both of you famous in your own rights, outside of the artwork. So we're just about at 7 p.m. now. So I'm just gonna I always get in trouble if I don't go to the last slide where I have our website and our hours, and tell everyone that please come and see the show if you haven't seen it. It's available online. And I thank you all for coming. And Robert and Max, I thank you for your friendship and your collaboration and for allowing us to show your work.
Thank you, Richard.
Thank you, Richard.
And thank you, Max.
Catherine, thank you,
Catherine.
Julie, all the people that made this work for us.
Great. Terrific.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.